Today I'd like to discuss how a cemetery dies. And there are cemeteries all over Travis County. There's over 250. There's a cemetery out here in McKinney Falls State Park. We have no idea where it is. We've got old notes, but it has been lost to time. There are slaves and Hispanics buried out there that used to run this plantation area. This whole area was agricultural at one point. Here's Highway 183. Here's Highway 71. It goes out toward Bastrop. And this is the new toll road 130. Here's Austin Bergstrom International Airport. Let me take you a quick look over here. This is the Southeast Metropolitan Park. If you come in here, you come around the road, you stop by this area here. Before this road turns right here, you come down this road right back up in here, and here's the Robert Jones Family Cemetery right in this area in here. Completely overgrown and lost to time. Very few people know it's there. When it was an agricultural area, there was a flood here on Onion Creek, and part of his family got washed down the creek, and there's another little family cemetery right about here off in the woods. So cemeteries die because families die off and move away, or they get filled up. The example I want to show you today, the one that most closely represents what could be facing the Jones Cemetery, is over here. It's known as the Montopolis Cemetery, or San Jose number 2, excuse me. This is the area in question right here. Off Poston Lane, this is Ella Lane here. There's a road that used to come down this way. And this area right here is a 4.5 acre Hispanic cemetery. That was used in the early 1900s, pretty much abandoned in the 1950s, but we still have families that will tunnel their way into the brush and bury loved ones. Let me show you some of the videos I've taken out here in the past. Here's some screenshots I've taken from Google Earth. This is 1995, really hard to tell. Here's the cemetery here. You can see that there are trailer homes and really low-income housing all around it here to the west, to the south, and a little bit to the east. This area has gone through a change. You'll notice all of the things here, and over time, some of this stuff starts to disappear. A lot of vehicles and other homes are back off over in here. Now the homes are starting to disappear. This is 2011. Developers are coming in and they're widening the road, and this property becomes more and more valuable. Here it is in 2012. It started to get cleaned up. And what happened next was a developer came in, an Austin lawyer, and he bought this whole tract of land here, removed the homes, and is using it for storage. He put up a fence and cut off the access from Ella Lane, so descendants who wanted to visit the cemetery, who would normally drive down this road, can no longer access it. They have to come in off Poston, go through a barbed wire fence, and come back this way to get to the Montopolis Cemetery. The Montopolis Cemetery is Hispanic in nature, and it was established by a donation of a white property owner, much like the Jones Cemetery, to meet the needs of the Hispanic community who was working out here in this farming community. The same scenario as in the Jones Cemetery. And again, we're going to kind of move forward a little bit in time. This is 2014. Here it is here, and again, proximity. Here is Ella Lane here, the way it used to look. There used to be pillars here that denoted the cemetery, but when they came in and started changing out the roads and doing things, this guy put up a fence here so the families can no longer get into that cemetery. They have to come in through the other way. These shots are from an Austin Code Department case file from 2011 when I got them involved with this because there was so much illegal dumping going on. And these are from their case files. This is the historic entrance in, and you can see that At some point, people had chained it off, but people were just coming to the perimeter of the cemetery and using it as a dump site. This is very common. Tires, cardboard, all these other things. Once you start illegally dumping, everybody else seems to think it's okay, and they just start bringing their trash in. The problem we had was the neighbors next to this property felt it was perfectly fine to do this. Here's the road coming in to the cemetery. Here's a copy of the code case file from 2011. The address they used was 8101 Poston Lane. You can see the frustration of Steve Farmer and Matthew Noriega, who were dealing with this. I was the complainant on file. It became an illegal dump site. There was somebody who identified themselves as the caretaker for the cemetery. It's Mr. Monreal. They found him, and he said, "Oh yeah, my family was the descendants, but he lacked the funds, he lacked the time, and he just couldn't do anything." Here's Frank's information right here. There was another person by the name of Torres that they reached out to, and again, nobody was keeping records. The caretakers, it was no longer making any money, and they just couldn't do it anymore. By themselves, they could not do it anymore, and it became a dump site. The code department came in and addressed part of it, but again, they were unwilling to spend taxpayer money to clean up what they saw as a private cemetery. In February of 2016, I visited this site. Again, there are over 250 of these in Travis County, and we keep an eye on them. And when construction or things start to change, we come in and monitor what's going on. Here you can see that the old homes have been removed, and this guy's business is for special events. He has barricades, piles of fencing, and other things that he's stocking on this property. He has put up a fence and excluded descendants from coming in here, stating it's now his property and nobody else can come on site. Here's that video. It's February 7th of 2016. This is Ella Lane looking back toward Hoke. This property was just bought by Mr. Gill. The old house that's there has been torn down. You can see he's staging some things, getting ready to develop. This is the line for the old Montopolis Cemetery. You can see where there used to be a column here, a footing, and then a short wall. You can see part of that there. You can see that there used to be a barricade across here several years ago in the photos, but all that's been taken down. We just hiked in over off Poston because this is now locked. So we came across the field in Poston, and I'm going to give you a quick walk down this road to see what the conditions are. There's a lot of privet on this side. Lots of trash and debris back off here in the woods. This is where I came in. We've always suspected that these folks over at this direction were dumping things in here. At one point they carpeted all of this. And so when I was here years ago, yes, there's a burial right down over here. And so somebody is maintaining a path to it. So we have a couple of burials here, at least two. Juan Miguel Mendoza in 1988. And then Pedro Ingacio Balderas, 1912 to 1988. And then we have what appears to be another interment right here. So we have at least three in this area here. We'll snap photos on the way back. A lot of trash and debris. The wind's out of the south, which is this property over here, blows over this way. Again, you can see where this is being used by these folks here. They've carpeted in the past they'd carpeted this. Here's what's left of that makeshift outhouse right here. And again, there's carpet and all kinds of material along this way. Foam insulation, just all kinds of things. Again, you can see where there's a path through the fence line from these properties here that just come in and use this as a dump site. Most of the fencing is down over here. Again, carpet. So a trail coming over here. And then just back off into the woods. Hard to tell if any of these lead anywhere. Probably not. You can see this is just big piles of human feces. Back off in here. And toilet paper. So there's bound to be people camping back down in here. Gonna go back out the way we came. This is gonna be a major undertaking, getting rid of all this brush just to determine where the burials are. All right, we're back on the main road again, leading to the back corner where we noted most of the burials in the past. But again, this site's never been cleaned since I've been involved, so it's really hard to tell how much of the area is being used for burials and what's not been used. So here's where we start seeing the internments. We have one here. We'll get pictures of this, and then we have several depressions here. So when they dig graves, they pile the fill up. Again, another huge depression right here. So we've got curbing. Here we have a monument. Here. It'd have to be dug out. And so there are depressions. This is a depression right here. You can see all along here where there are depressions. They're more or less lined up north and south as far as I can tell. And then you have a second row out here. So and then more temporary markers here. Another marker here. Another one here. So it seems like we're in the south. It's going to be the southeast corner here. Well, in the southeast corner, here's a pole. I'll get a number off that pole. But yeah, it looks like at least 2 rows out here. We'll go ahead and record some names. Yeah, see, here's one over here. But this might be a good project for the local archaeological group. Just come in here and tackle this corner and see what we have. Here are some of the still shots I took on that visit, and you can see all Hispanic surnames, 1950. And again, a name but really no information. This is the southeast corner, and keep in mind, I'm going to show you a very disturbing video in a minute of what happened to this area. Sometimes all we have is just a name. Here we have from 1947, Hilteen Manor. These people are all but forgotten. Again, 1950, 1949, 1948. Here's a very simple handmade stone. Hard to read now. Here's a pole that I use for reference for the area. Again, 1962. This area here, 1988. This is an area where a family had come in with mowers and cut in a path into a field that is now completely overgrown and buried family members. Again, 1988. I think there's 3 of them right around that same time frame. And here's an unmarked grave here. It is important to keep records and have somebody in charge so you know who's buried where. Over time, they will all be forgotten. Now, it doesn't take long for a cemetery to die. Once the descendants stop visiting, and you can see in this case, some of these date from 1909 up into the 1980s, in fact, that once descendants stop visiting, and you have property owners on the side of the property who tear down fences and use it as a dump site, it doesn't take long for this to happen. And this is really disturbing. In the beginning of this video, I'm choking because I'm choking on the smell of human waste, effluent, sewage that is running across the top of these old graves. It is March the 11th of 2017. We're standing in the San Jose, also known as the Montopolis Cemetery, and for reference, we're by electrical pole 217189. We are in the southeast corner of the old cemetery from the 1950s, Hispanic, and you can see this is a river of effluent. This is sewage from these makeshift homes on the adjacent property, and they're flowing right over the top of all of these graves. Hispanic cemetery dating back to 1909, used in the 1950s and pretty much abandoned. And it smells of human waste. This is just unacceptable. So I'm asking the city watershed department, the city code department to come out here once again and go through the neighborhood and at least make sure that these neighbors have sufficient sewage facilities, because nobody wants to be at rest and have sewage cover their body. So here we are back at the Jones Cemetery. Let's lay out some comparisons. Again, we have another cemetery that was dedicated to public use, that is primarily farmers and people of lower incomes, that was established as a benefit for them. Over time, there have been trustees that have come and go, much like the Montopolis Cemetery, also known as San Jose Number 2. We do have an Hispanic section that has a long history of a family that has been monitoring this thing. But you can see that this section is all but full. There used to be a line here. They've expanded into this section. You can see the graves here and the graves here. Pretty soon, all they have left is this piece of the pie right here. This is what we have to grow into, is areas in here and this piece of the pie. Once this is full, there's no more income coming in. The Anglo section is pretty much in the same position. There are family groupings along the fence line. You can see the fenced-in areas in here. The families some of them have died off. The Jones family certainly is probably still around, but they're not using it anymore. The site becomes grossly overgrown, and people stop coming. Let's look at the surrounding neighborhood. While there are some nice houses here, it is populated primarily by single-wide and double-wide travel trailers. You can see that the people illegally dump things just all over the place. And it's happening on every lot. It's happening over here. This lot here is actually deemed cemetery property, and this homeowner here has encroached into here and is using it as his personal storage space. All of these are on a septic. There is no sewage system for this subdivision here. The newer one has one, but not Kennedy Ridge. The only advantage you have is this is high ground. If somebody starts overpopulating their lots and exceed the capacity of a sewage system, which is basically just a septic tank, and you get a lot of heavy rains, where do you think all of that is going to flow? And again, let's look at the African American section. It was used up to 50 years ago, and it is completely overgrown. This is what I mean by the death of a cemetery. There are graves over here. We can find them. People stopped using it. Even though we think there's a lot of space here, they just stopped using it. There was no money coming in. Nobody was going to maintain it. There was no legal owner, no group of trustees that stood up, and it became overgrown. I would hate to see this section here is closely followed behind this one. Dead trees, and it only gets cleaned a couple times a year. This one is being cleaned, but give it 40 or 50 years, and it'll look just like the Montopolis Cemetery. The families will move away. Second and third generations won't be coming out anymore, and you'll have the same problem all over again. This is the benefit of forming a nonprofit corporation. Electing a set of trustees, you have the advantage of having an income source right here. The advantage of, once you get legal title to the property, selling this tract of land here, which was never used as a cemetery, putting that money into a trust fund, and then properly managing this area, cleaning up your illegal dump site right in here, and open this up for new burials, meeting the needs of the community and perpetually adding more money into your account. Or you can do nothing and you'll end up with something that looks like the Montopolis Cemetery.